Hello and welcome to another episode of Absent with Our Lord podcast, everything faith, family, and outdoors. Join us on all social media platforms and share with friends and family. We hope you are encouraged and uplifted by our content as we share the good news, the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Hey guys, it's Johnathan here, Absent with Our Lord podcast. We have another great episode brought to you from Team AWOL. I have in Mackenzie Stevenson with us, Aaron Hall, also known as Biff, and we have Redbeard Outdoors on the channel with us today. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing fantastic, man. I appreciate the invite. I always love it's interesting being on the opposite side of the microphone, being the guest, not the host. So,
and the good thing
always
is,
up for a good conversation.
The good thing is we can refer to you as Redbeard because I also am a Johnathan. So
Exactly. You know, the beauty of that too is, I heard something recently. It was John Dudley talking to the ranch fairy, but he referred to him as Troy. It was like, I don't talk to people as their aliases. Because there's people that have on social media, YouTube, whatever, they have these things they come off as like appearances or characters. And Redbeard is just a nickname that stuck at Elk Shape Camp. And, it sticks, but it's not a personality, so I don't mind it at all.
Excellent. That's why I also say, Erin, my wife, tells me as we're on the podcast, she's like, Biff doesn't sound professional. I'm like, that's how I've known him pretty well since I've known him. So
when have you ever thought this was a professional endeavor?
I guess.
I worked with Aaron for like 5 years before. I'm like, that's not his name. I thought it was like something shortened for something.
I even had I got voted or whatever, selected as employee of the month once whenever I was working with them early on, and it was actually addressed to my house to Biff Hall, like in the official mail. Like, so the people up front didn't know my real name either.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
So give us a little story. Tell us about Johnathan.
Awesome. Well, Johnathan was just the normal kid growing up in North Carolina. I was born at Cherry Point, and my dad was a Marine, and the whole family was in the military, and so grew up around Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. I don't recommend anyone go and visit there unless you absolutely have to. There's a reason they call it Vietnam, and definitely don't recommend that. The rest of North Carolina is gorgeous. Go to the coast, go to the mountains, but Fayetteville, it's gone downhill even since I left. But I grew up in North Carolina, loved the South, good old Southern food, played sports growing up, baseball, football, soccer, everything I could, and went out fishing every year with my grandpa on the coast, and just loved the outdoors. I got my Eagle Scout award. I was blessed to have some amazing, come to find out later that a lot of my Scoutmasters were, they were well into the Special Forces community, we'll just put it that way, and I didn't notice that as a kid. I just knew they knew what they were talking about. And now, like, talking to them as an adult, I'm like, you were, you were definitely one of those guys.
Makes sense. It all makes sense.
Very
now.
well trained. Yeah. But yeah, I was blessed to have amazing scout leaders. It wasn't just to show up once a week. It was, they would take us out into the woods and teach us field craft and all that cool stuff. And so ended up getting my Eagle Scout, and then came out to Utah. I didn't have any family west of the Mississippi, and had never been west of the Mississippi, and just picked BYU. I was raised LDS. I was one of two Mormon kids in my high school. The other one didn't really go to church, so I was really the only one that people came to with questions when South Park came out with all their episodes. And do I read my Bible out of a top hat? Do I shave my horns? Do Mormons run? Do Mormons run hell? Is it really a hot tub with hot chicks in it? Like all this stuff, right? And I was like, I don't know. I don't even watch South Park. But anyway, it sparked some interesting conversation, to say the least. And then anyway, flew out to Utah because the plan was to serve a mission. And so for people that don't know about the Mormon Church or LDS, more properly referred to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a lot of young men and young women go and serve 2-year missions or 18 months. And that was my plan. I was never forced to do it. I just was like, I'd love to see the world. I'd love to go out and knock doors and serve people. And when the conversation arises, talk about Christ and help people. And so I just said I didn't want to go to any of the party schools in North Carolina. I wanted to go to BYU. I heard really good things. The campus looked gorgeous in pictures, and I applied, and I got in. And so told my parents, and they were like, well, what's your plan? I said, I don't know. I'm flying out though.
Right.
Like, I don't have any family, don't have any friends, nothing out here. So came out here, went to school for a year, and then I served a mission down in Mexico City for 2 years. Learned the language, learned the people, culture, absolutely love it. All the ups and downs that go with different cultures, and learning to respect hot water and carpet and air conditioning and all those good things. And
then
then
changes your perspective, doesn't it?
it really does. And I know, and I realize this now. I was kind of a weird kid growing up. Like, I could fit in with pretty much any group, but I didn't really have a specific group that I was known to be a part of. Like, I could fit in with the preps, I could fit in with the jocks. Never really hung out with the emo kids. But, I could fit in kind of around any group. And then I just loved learning about different cultures and groups and environments. And so that helped me going down to Mexico with an open mind and being able to laugh at myself because I didn't know the language, And so I said things. There's a funny story that I always tell people when I was first down there. I'd say things like, in English, you say like, holy cow, or, what in the world, right? And so I would just, when I was learning the language, just to be funny, I would just directly translate it, and it doesn't make sense in their language. They'd always laugh and look at me like, what the heck, and figure out what that actual phrase is in Spanish. But one time we were sitting around with this family for lunch, and the big meal in Mexico is lunch, not dinner. So we're sitting there, and it was a hot day, and I don't like to eat a lot when it's hot. I just get lethargic. And so I was trying to explain to the lady, like, I appreciate you being so generous, because that's the thing down there, that if you don't accept a second plate of food, it's almost like you didn't like the food. Mm-hmm. And I was trying in my broken Spanish to explain, as I'm a sunburnt, like beet red, redhead, blue-eyed, just weird-looking guy, trying to explain in my Spanish that I love the food, but if I ate anymore, I'd be too hot, and I might get sick, or I wouldn't want to go knock doors and do service like we were called to do down there. And so I was trying to tell her I was hot, like it was hot. And so I just finally said, I'm like, I'm really hot. Well, when you translate that, it really translates to, I'm really turned on.
Uh-oh.
There's this 19-year-old boy sitting there in a terrible accent, broken Spanish, and there's children at the table, an entire family. And I sit there and say, I can't eat anymore. I'm really turned on.
We've all been there.
Everyone just busts up laughing. Everyone. And I just kind of looked around. I was like, what? It's hot. And I said it again. Like, I'm really hot. And they're just like, my companion was just like, shut up. That's not the right thing to say. So anyway, that's kind of how my first, I'd say, 6 months in Mexico went. And then after that, something clicked after days and days of headaches and trying to learn the language, because I wanted to serve the people the best I could, and spread the message of Christ the best I could. I put all my English books away. All my companions were Spanish speaking only. So something clicked. And then it got to the point where people would call us, and we only had one cell phone in between the two of us. And they're like, hey, we want to speak with the white guy. And I'm like, well, it's me. They're like, no way, no, really, pass me over to Elder McCormick. And I'm like, no, seriously, it's me. And they're like, oh, what's up, mayonnaise? Because that was my nickname down there, was mayonnaise, I'm the white kid, and McCormick makes a mayonnaise that they sell in Mexico. Yeah.
That's like Bama mayonnaise. That's hilarious.
Exactly. So it fit perfect. I was known that every new area I went to, it caught on real quick. I say, hey, it's Elder McCormick, and they're like, McCormick, like that sounds weird. I'm like, okay, like the mayonnaise, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, and it was like an instant connection. But anyway, so I served for 2 years, came back, and ended up back in Utah, and then found my wife and got stuck out here because she didn't want to go back east.
So how long have you been married?
Almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in March.
Excellent. Congratulations on that.
Hey, real quick, not to break in on you too much, but one of the things whenever I was doing I was listening to a bunch of the early episodes of Redbeard Outdoors podcast, and
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool, man. Like it's to see the evolution of you and your journey and all that's really cool, and the way the podcast has grown is pretty awesome. But what I was wanting to get to was your approach that I don't remember what the title of the episode was. Maybe it was faith or something about your faith, and you were telling kind of how your approach was to the mission work and the service, and you've kind of touched on it tonight, but I was just wanting to see if you would run through that for us real quick, just about the, not going down, knocking door to door and throwing Bibles in people's faces, but to see how you could serve them.
No, 100%. I appreciate you bringing that up. And yes, to anyone out there listening, I don't recommend, especially the first 10 or 15 episodes of my podcast. I leave them out there so you can, if you really want to go back and listen to the original ones and to now, go for it. But it was cringeworthy. And my friends were like, dude, you're going to have to stop podcasting. Like, this is awful. They're like, we love having conversations. You're awesome to talk with, but you suck on a microphone. And I figured out, and we'll hit on that a little bit later as to, what I did to change that. But missionary work, it's something that there's so many things. And again, this is something that I realized, like, I knew that my way, I look at religion as it's like a vessel to get you to a location. And although I believe that my church has all of the correct paths and directions and everything to get to Christ, what it boils down to is Christ is the center of it. Mm-hmm. Some people think that Mormons, which we've steered away from that last couple of years, our prophet has asked us not to use that term because we don't worship Mormon. It's in the name of our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so Latter-day Saints being the latter days, before the second coming.
Right.
And so the basis of our religion isn't any other person other than Christ. And so I took that really seriously. One, it was really humbling to not know a language. So that helps too when you're going down and you realize you can't really have an argument with somebody because you're going to lose because you just don't have the words. So that takes that away. And for some people, that's really frustrating. And for me, I just looked at it as, well, how else can I reach these people? And Catholicism is a big thing down there, but it's also kind of like here where you say Christianity, and there's Christians that go to church on the big holidays. There's a lot of people that just go to church, the Catholic Church, for Mass on whenever there's been a major sin, or they go there for the major holidays. And so I recognized that, and then I just said, well, what did Christ do? And he just served people. Right. And I'm the weirdo here. I don't know the language. I can't have a detailed discussion about all these awesome things that I love to talk about religion, and diving down about how I believe Christ is the ultimate scientist, not just, snapping his fingers and making things happen. He knows the chemistry and the physics and everything behind the miracles that he performed. Instead of going down that way, I just went to the basics. I need to serve these people. I need to be able to laugh at myself and relate to them through calling myself Elder Mayonnaise and, things like that. Learning to joke with them and things along those lines so that I could show them that we weren't just there to dunk them in water. Right. They're not just another number to bring to the church building. They're not just another tithe payer. They're someone that our Lord and Savior generally cares about, and I'm the vessel for that. And so that's how I approached it. And there's a lot of missionaries that went on their mission, and they still do, where they were forced, they were bribed by their parents. And I recognize that as being a leader in the mission field itself. And it made me sad, because I was like, guys, you're missing out on an amazing opportunity. Even if you are from Mexico, you're going to a different state and learning a different almost culture. It'd be like someone from New York going down to Texas, or someone from California going to Florida. You know, like it's similar, but not the same. And so I'm like, you're missing out on this amazing opportunity to know people and to serve them. You literally don't have to worry about bills. You don't have to worry about girlfriends. You don't have to worry about getting married, getting in a car wreck. Like, you don't have to worry about anything right now except for serving people. And there's not another time in my life where I get to do that.
Right.
And I recognize that. Even as a dad, I still have to work, and I wish I could just do nothing except for play with my kids and serve them all day and serve the neighborhood. I can't do that. You know, there's other responsibilities. So that's just, I had that foresight that I feel like a lot of missionaries didn't understand, which is, again, understandable. As a 19, 20-year-old man, young men, boys, you don't really think about that. And so it's just the way I approached it, though.
Yeah, going out and being, well, some, I'm sure, at least on fire for God, wanting to do something good, do something big, but to really make that impact. I can't remember where it was now, a couple days ago, this guy was talking about our primary duty, as Christians is to, not evangelize, but to, encourage, find other disciples, build other disciples, go out and build God's kingdom, by bringing people in, and everything else to that is secondary. But what's the best way to do that than to just go out and to serve and to, have the Spirit of Christ, to show the Spirit of Christ, not by reading scripture or quoting scripture or anything like that, but washing feet, maybe not literally, but whatever they need, providing that need over and over again in the Bible. It's, don't just love in word, but in deed, how you do, how you serve others.
Exactly. And it's not, it's something that some people maybe they'll think it's crass or whatever, kind of rude to say, but our job is to sell Christ. I mean, that's really what it is. And you're not selling it for money. You're selling it as like living the example. And it's something that people will eventually, because what you do, if you're a salesman by trade, you find the person, if you're a good one, you're not a pushy or a greasy kind of salesman, but you're an actual good salesman with good intentions. You find people's needs and you fill those gaps with what to be the best. And so you get to know those people, though, not by shoving it down their throats that Christ is the one and only way. You go through that by building a relationship with them and then finding out where those gaps are. It's just like with anything else. And so, I didn't quite understand it to that depth, but I just went out and served people, and then they were like, well, why did you come down here from, why are you willing to walk around and get sunburnt to come and help me with my yard or my plants or paint houses or whatever it is that we did that day? Why are you willing to do that? Right. Because they're like, you don't even know us. I'm like, you're right, I don't. But I know you're children of God. And I know that He would want you to hear this message that I've got for you.
Absolutely.
So,
that's awesome.
Just kind of how I approached it.
I just think, I mean, like you said, the foresight or the forward thinking. I've been serving the Lord for many years now, but at 19, I missed that. Even though I grew up in church, raised in church, it took me later on in years. So that you had that understanding at 19 years old is awesome. I just got to visit a church in Houston, Texas a couple weeks ago, and they had it broke down very simply. for anybody to understand. And they had 4 key words, and it was love, grow, serve, go. And I was like, that's exactly what it's about. And that you understood that at an early age is definitely, I can tell, a passion. That's what those salesmen have, that passion too that's behind it to seek out. Because not everybody can be salesmen, but when, you have an experience with Christ as a Savior, I mean, it's easy to be a salesman. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think traveling, I mean, I've been blessed. I was able to go to Australia during high school as a United States student ambassador, and that was my first, outside of the U.S. experience and meeting, families. I had a homestay family. I was over there for, it was almost a full month, and then I've kept contact with those people all the way up. I mean, I'm 33 now, so for years and years, and their kids got, they're grown and have grandkids, and, just making that connection. And then being in the automotive industry, I've been blessed to be able to travel to China and Japan and Spain, France, Mexico, a whole bunch. But you do see the different cultures as far as, religion wise, when we were in China, that was the most, the shocking, you can't travel with the Bible. You won't, won't have one in your hotel. It was just completely, we had young engineers with us in China through my company, and I was pretty open just at a dinner conversation about religion with them and how serious of, ramifications it was even to discuss it outside of, any more than a group of 2. And just, we're very blessed to be in the U.S. and have our freedoms of our religious beliefs. And I think as a kid or a young person, I try to encourage as many young people as I can when they have an opportunity to go somewhere else and to see other parts of the world and to understand. There's no place like the USA. No place like it. I've been a lot of places. We just got back from Israel last year, me and my husband, and we took a Holy Land tour, and it was very, very beautiful. And the people over there are very, very kind. But the religious customs and stuff over there, seeing that at full scale, that we don't see that. I mean, we're here in Southern Illinois, we just really don't. We do have Southern Illinois University, which is a big multicultural university, but it's just not the norm. So I encourage as many young people as I possibly can for them to experience that, and I think that it would make a huge impact on their adulthood when they go experience other places.
Exactly. Yeah, that, and it sounds silly, but when you have to wake up and take a shower with cold water because you don't have a water heater, then that was my first introduction to the cold plunge, but I didn't want to. There was no warming up afterwards. There were no blankets. There was no carpet. It was just tile floors and scripture study time while I'm shivering. And that's just kind of, things like that. I feel like a lot of people need to get back to. I think we're so bored here in the U.S. that it's caused a lot of problems, and people want to either go one way or the other, where they completely negate religion, or they go the opposite and they become what I would call Pharisees, where they're judging everybody. And I'm like, well, you're not perfect, so don't do that. That's just as bad as not going to church, in my opinion.
No doubt.
But just living a good example. And I don't go to church every Sunday, but if I'm not at church, it's because I'm up on the mountain. And that to me is a way of worship, because Christ wants us to use this world that he has made and appreciate it, and recognizing that that's what it's created for. It doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, again, this is, everyone's got their own beliefs, but me personally, even though I was raised in the church where we do 3 hours of church, and now it's down to 2, but 3 hours every Sunday. We had Wednesday meetings, and then if you were in any kind of leadership, you had more than that on Sunday. And it's just, there's a lot of meetings and a lot of time in a building. and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like if you have the opportunity to be out in the woods or up on the mountain or out on the lake with your loved ones, making memories, that's what, Christ is just as happy with that as he is with you sitting in a suit and tie in church.
Yeah, we would definitely agree upon that. My husband and Johnathan, they teach class at our church, and we have the typical, 2-3 hours, go to lunch after on Sunday. We've got, prayer meetings, we've got kids events, and it can be, all consuming, keeps you out of trouble too. But definitely during hunting season, if we're not there on Sunday, everybody knows where we're at.
And to your point, that's what we push, right? And I don't mean this any disrespectful, and I guess it could be taken that I second guess in saying it, but I'm going to go ahead, and that's never stopped me before, is church isn't for church people. It's to keep us involved, but that building is built so people that need Christ as their Savior can come somewhere and feel His presence and come into that atmosphere and be put into there. I'm granted, I'm not above sin. I need God and Christ in my life to do that. But if I'm gonna do a little deer hunting, I think that's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the other thing too, there's a building, and it's compared to the spiritual hospital. It's kind of the way I look at it as well. There's so many imperfect people that go there. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily agree with everything that everyone says there. Even sometimes the leadership, you can't look at them and put them up on a pedestal because they're not always acting, and they're still human. And when you involve humans in anything, it's going to be imperfect.
Of course.
And it's going to be based on their biases. But with that being said, it also, you can if you're following the promptings of the Spirit, whether the person that you are reaching out to is religious or not, you can still make them feel the love through you that the Savior has for them by giving them a call when you feel a prompting to. I've had that happen a couple times, especially recently, with people I've never even met in person, but we've become really good friends through whether it be First Form or the hunting community or the podcast. And I just get this random urge to give someone a call, and they don't even answer. But guess what? I leave a voicemail, which also seems to not be common nowadays. And I'll leave a voicemail, and they either read it or listen to it, and they'll give me a call back, and they're like, man, it's weird because in that moment I was feeling XYZ thing, and I wasn't feeling so good. I've had other people tell me that they weren't necessarily going to commit suicide, but they were having suicidal thoughts. And it just blows me away because I'm like, I don't even know these people from Adam, to be honest with you. But I knew that I needed to give them a call or a text or a video message at that time. And then I would do it. And then for whatever it is, and for me, it's a spirit. Some people may say your conscience, whatever, but the Spirit would, let me know to do that. I did it. And then all of a sudden it was almost like the checklist was done. I was good. I didn't think twice about it until they would call me back or text me back. I'm like, oh shoot, okay, well that had a bigger impression than I thought it would. I thought I was just saying hi. And so those are things too that I'm not perfect at acting on those, but there was one that I won't necessarily share, but it's really impactful. And since then, I'm like, I need to listen to that voice a little bit more.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been given the gift of knowledge to utilize.
Yeah, and it's just something that we can all do. Just if you're out in public, even at some of these kids' events that I go to, or even at the park, I'll put my phone down in my pocket, and my kids are playing with their friends or whatever, and I'll walk laps with my rucksack on my back, and I'll look around and I'm like, man, I'm like, do I look like that? And there's parents that have their nose deep in their phone, and all they're doing is scrolling. They're not actively sending a text on the phone. Like, they're just one thumb up. And I'm like, what? Like, I hope I don't look like that. And it almost makes me sick to my stomach, but I also know that there are times I probably do look like that. And so that's something that I, just going back to going to a different country, having some kind of experience like that. Like, we need to actively be involved in our surroundings, and I feel like that's a big reason why there's so many problems nowadays with just arguing and keyboard warriors and being willing to say whatever you want to say. Like, there's something to be said about half the stuff that's being said online. If you said it in person, just before my generation or at the beginning of my generation, you'd get decked in the face.
Yep.
And guess what? After the fight, you guys are best friends again, at least for guys.
Yep.
And so nowadays that doesn't happen. There isn't that release. We can type whatever we want under an anonymous name. No one knows who we are. And that just cycle keeps going and creates so much negativity. So, there's definitely something to be said about that.
I think with where I see our, outdoor ministry, if you will, or whatever you call what White Oak Legends is I see it as an opportunity in a lot of different avenues to find the persuadable people in need of meeting people where they are and directing them to Jesus. And it could be through any avenue. We do a lot of community events. I've been trying to ramp that up. We have a big water tower, or not a water tower, a clock tower in our city square, and they shut the city square down. And every third Thursday, there's a huge community event, and it's grown and grown all year long. I mean, the last one that we attended and supported with, we had a table, and there was probably near 2,000, definitely 1,000 people. And you could see it if you took the time to have real conversations with people who really was missing that missing puzzle piece, and to be able to minister them, not just like you said, not shove it down their throat, but definitely if they were inquisitive to be the best salesperson that I could be in an honest manner, and not be pushy about it. And we made really cool connections on that. Do you see the benefits of the knowledge of First Form translating into your podcast, your life, your disciplines?
Oh yeah, 100%. So some of I guess the two biggest for me communities that I'm a part of, companies that I work with for health, nutrition, and then behind that, their belief system. First Form doesn't talk about it a ton, but a lot of them do talk about their faith in Christ. And Go Ruck is another one, another company that I highly recommend people go, and they definitely talk about it on a regular basis. Either way, they both are all about hard work. And I had an experience recently where, I'm not on any of the phases right now for Live Hard or 75 Hard, but I still was out doing my ruck. I was doing a 5K ruck every day in October, every day that I wasn't up on the mountain. Right. So I would do my regular gym workout, and then I would do a 5K ruck. Usually it involved going to the kids in my park, and I would just walk laps around the park. But one of these days, we weren't going to have time that afternoon, and so I just did it. And of course, as soon as I walk out the front door, it starts raining. And it wasn't like freezing rain, but it was like in the mid 40s, so it's cold. And of course, it didn't start raining until I was around the block, and all I had was a sweatshirt on, so I didn't have any rain gear or anything. I had shorts, my normal tennis shoes, and I just said, screw it, I'm going to kind of test my mental strength here for a minute. And I was usually just short of an hour on my 5K with that, and I was maybe 10 minutes into it. So I had another 45, 50 minutes of this cold rain.
Right.
And so anyway, I'm walking around, sloshing in my shoes, and long story short, get done with that, take a warm shower, get back to work. And then the trunk or treat that we did for Halloween, I had a couple of, we're just talking with some families, and one of the guys was like, do you ruck every day? I said, well, in October I do, and when I'm on, a phase of Live Hard, that's usually my outdoor workout is a ruck. And he was like, well, I saw you the other day when it was raining, it was cold, and you looked, you were smiling, and I was wondering, like, is there something wrong with Johnathan? Because like it's cold, and he's obviously soaked, and he's got a backpack on. And he was like, what? Like, what was that about? And I was like, oh, it's just kind of, I walked through the whole testing my mental strength, and my idea of doing the 5K ruck every day with the Go Ruck squad. And then he just sent me a reel yesterday that he came across. He was like, hey, this reminded me of you. And I don't know if you guys have seen the Alpha Dad reels where he like lifts up the garage and he's lifting weights with his daughter or something. He's like, I got to introduce myself to the neighbor by doing heavy squats or something, you know? And it was this guy out in the rain. He was like, this is how you, or take rain as an opportunity to show your Alpha Dad status to your neighbors. He like goes out in front of someone's house and is curling weights in the rain with his shirt off.
That's awesome.
He was like, this reminded me of you.
That's amazing.
So just all that to say, you don't know who's watching, right? And so with First Form and Go Ruck, you know, that's what I encourage people to do, is to live a healthier lifestyle. And that's something that I love about First Form is it's not all about, hey, buy this stack, or hey, buy this pre-workout, or buy this protein, it's going to make you jacked. It's all about the education, and it goes back to like what we were talking about. You find the need. So if you could, eat as many whole foods as possible, and if you can get all the protein and all the micronutrients that you need and all the calories that you need from whole foods, then you don't need supplements.
Right.
But it's dang near impossible to do if you're trying to achieve any sort of goal. And so that's where supplements come in. They fill a gap.
Yep.
You know, and so that's what I love about First Form is it wasn't, well, just use this code, save a discount, you know, and you know what pre-workout does, and you know what, you know, protein powder does. Like, you go through schooling where you basically get your nutrition degree, short of the letters beside your name, so that you know when you have a discussion with someone about First Form products, you know what you're talking about. And you don't just try and sell people stuff.
Right.
And so that's something with First Form that I love, and the quality of the products, and that the people actually live what they talk about. They don't just, you know, again, try and sell you something.
Yeah, they do.
So,
They 100%. Those, we just talked about it with Clint on there. I said, when you go to headquarters, it's just, I'm sure Aaron will go now that he's a Legionnaire eventually, but man, it's like, you know, I almost didn't even want to leave. Or when you do leave, you like go back to work and you're like, what's wrong with you people?
Yeah, everybody that I've not been in the ecosystem too long, but the everybody you meet, I mean, even at the Legionnaire level, you know, guys like you, just absolute killers, you know, and everybody you deal with, you know, in the app, at HQ, wherever, they're just studs. It's pretty cool. And I actually got introduced to Go Ruck back in 2015, I guess. Did my first tough back then, and definitely a similar crowd for sure. Very hardcore, you know, very testing yourself. The way I describe it is I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for 6.5 years, but
that's amazing.
I was in the middle of my, well, not the middle, but I was definitely in the midst of my alcoholism whenever I started doing the Go Ruck stuff, and I kind of call it a physical change because I've told this before, but I quit everything in my life growing up, baseball, you know, basketball. I couldn't even finish a book. And I saw my buddy asked me to do this Go Ruck event with them, and I had no idea. I looked it up a little bit on YouTube, and I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I'm just not going to quit. They're going to have to either call me an ambulance, or they're going to have to kick me out, whatever. I'm just going to go do it, and I'm not going to quit. And I mean, we almost got to the ambulance level, I guess, in that first one, because I was severely underprepared, but it shifted my whole mindset, you know, to where the rain, the cold, the whatever, just like you were saying, bring it on, you know, embrace the suck, as they say in the Go Ruck community, to the worse, the better, you know, I'm trying to instill that into my 3 boys, that the only answer is yes, let's do more work. Yes, I want to do it harder. Yes, if it's raining, snowing, whatever, we're going to do it, and I'm going to be smiling in the middle of it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely something that is different mindset for sure, and a lot of people won't understand it, and that's okay. I've had some people, you know, with First Form, for example, where, you know, they were asking me about it a year ago, and they just recently made their first purchase. and they're super excited, but they've been watching for a year. And if I hadn't been consistent, and if I hadn't answered their random questions, here and there, they would have never made the purchase, and they would never be on the path that they are now. It sucks that it took them a year, but they were looking to see if I was actually trying to sell them something, or if it was a genuine, this is a lifestyle that I live, and so it's something that, going with First Form and right now the Knockdown Challenge. So when this podcast is released, unfortunately you won't be able to register, but look forward to next year for it. And if you are in it right now, the Knockdown Challenge is no joke. It's something that we brainstormed for a year before it even came out. And there's similar challenges out there, and that's cool. That's awesome. But there's something about the November Knockdown Challenge it's just different. And it's all about building the community. It's all about getting people involved in testing themselves. And I think that's really awesome, because we're not just about the best looking people. Actually, First Form fires people if they are elite athletes or sponsored trainers that they find out they're photoshopping their photos. They fire them. There's no second, third opportunity. You're done. Like, that's an understood thing that if you get caught doing and you are sponsored by First Form, you're done on the spot. So they're very much about real people and real long-term results.
Am I wrong sorry. Go ahead.
You're good.
I was just going to say, am I wrong in saying that this will be released likely after the registrar getting in on week 1 in time to submit the times? But even if it's too late to register, or you're not going to actually be able to compete for the grand prize, to go and compete at HQ, you can definitely still get on the First Form Outdoors Facebook group, find the workouts. And even if you're not competing, for it all, you can get in there and get the workouts, do the workouts, and push yourself, if that's something you're interested in, for sure.
100%. Yeah. And that's the thing with First Form community, is that it's all about getting better. There's a lot of people that are doing it that don't shoot bows. And so they're not really competing to go to HQ for this one particularly. But believe me when I say that the people at headquarters pay attention to the people that are in it for the long haul. That's something that has been brought to my attention on multiple occasions, where they're looking for people that are consistent. And even if you can't participate in this challenge, there's going to be future challenges that involve, all sorts of outdoors. So, hiking, fishing, hunting, shooting with a rifle, shooting with a pistol. Like, we're getting involved in all of those outdoors activities. It's just right now, archery is the thing to talk about, and it's a pretty low barrier of entry. If you go with the budget friendly bows, you don't have to go get a flagship bow. You can just go get a bow to shoot at a target and practice that. And what that does, for me anyway, I've found it doesn't do this for me when I go shoot guns. I love shooting guns. I haven't in a while because prices were crazy and it was hard to find ammo. So I just had enough stored up that I was comfortable where I was and focused on archery.
Right.
But with archery, something that you don't get, at least for me with rifles, is there's this focus that happens when you train consistently. And the only way that I can compare it is, it's almost like if you've either gone under anesthesia, like full anesthesia for surgery, and that feeling of like it's in and they're telling you it's in and they start counting down, and all of a sudden it's almost like someone's like blacking out from the corners of your eyes all the way to all of a sudden you're blacked out. It's like this slow process. For me, when I'm shooting under stress, which I go and shoot with guys that'll smack you with arrows while you're at full draw and talk crap to you and all this stuff, I'm able to tune that out because I'm able to hone in on what's important, which at that moment is your breathing, your aim, and then pulling through the shot. And that's something that not many other sports can teach you, because there's a lot of, you're running around in soccer or football or baseball, whatever, you're not able to really hone in on the specific one shot. Archery does something different that I've fallen in love with. And I can't compare it to anything else. I absolutely love it. So,
as Uncle Ted says, the majestic flight of the arrow.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, unfortunately, unless I'm really at far distances, my arrows fly a little too fast for me to be able to see it. Maybe someone else can, but I love the slow-mo of arrows, and eventually I'll get into a stick bow when I'm good enough. I'm still not quite good enough with a compound to move over to stick bow yet, but yeah, it's something. There's just something about it, like just drawing back, and then with an animal, you can't see a bullet go through an animal. You just don't. You see the hit, you see him kick, but with an arrow, you can watch your fletchings vary through them, and you got a good shot or you didn't. It is what it is.
How
and you know that shot. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. How did First Form Outdoors come up with like the biathlon approach of setting up these challenges?
So that was a conglomerate, a bunch of different things that we participated in. But basically it was just, how can we get our heart rate up and in a short amount of time and test ourselves with archery? Because whether you're hiking in the West, and going up after elk, deer, sheep, whatever, your heart rate's going to be up usually when you go to take a shot. Mm-hmm. If you're a whitetail hunter, and I haven't yet experienced this, I will this weekend and next week for the first time going whitetail hunting. But from what I understand is, you're sitting there dinking around on your phone, reading a book, whatever, and then the deer comes in and your heart rate jumps through the roof and you're shaking.
That's accurate.
As you're trying to draw
that would be accurate. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to test that out because I've had a different experience on my couple years of hunting with a bow than that out here out west. But I'll follow up with you guys and let you know if that's what happened. But I tend to shake after the shot. Like it's weird. I get really honed in and I make the shot happen and I watch the arrow go through them and then I get the shake and emotional. So I don't know. We'll see if that happens with whitetail or not. But either way, we were just trying to brainstorm, going back to the November Knockdown Challenge, how to train that moment and how to test ourselves with that. And so you put the constraints of you either take time off your score or add time to your score with the target. Excuse me. And then just, really high intensity workouts for a short amount of time.
How long have you been shooting a bow?
I've been shooting a bow since 2019, so I'm still new. At least I consider myself new.
And that's what I was thinking too. I started as an avid outdoorsman, and I only, as a child growing up, I really bird hunted like dove. My dad was into small game, rabbit, honestly, because we did fill the freezer and whatever we could do right around our 40 acres that we had, whether it was dove, rabbit, squirrel, that's what we went after, because we could do it daily and frequently, things like that. So I started that, and then we got into waterfowl just because I enjoyed the shooting aspect, and then of course that led to I wanted to feel the rush you so described, the animal out in front of you, the majestic whitetail, big antlers, you getting struck, and we started deer hunting. But it wasn't till about 16 years ago, a buddy of mine's like, dude, you enjoy hunting so much, you're such an avid, you got to try bow hunting. And this is a true story. The first time I ever we went to a 3D archery range. I got a hand-me-down bow from my grandfather, and we went to a place, and I was at 20-yard line shooting a video screen. I completely missed the screen and sent my arrow through the back of the trailer. And the guy said, I've owned this for 22 years, son. I've never seen anybody do that. and my friends all laughed and they razzed me, but I practiced, and I consistently would practice in my backyard. And the first time I ever went out, I shot a buck whitetail. And the same guy that told me I needed to go hunting was on his 3rd year of archery and still hadn't taken a whitetail. And he's like, man, that's crazy. And I agree with the focus in the, intensity that comes with it, that now, unless it's waterfowl season, that's what I'm shooting. I'm shooting a compound out there chasing the whitetail, that I just love the focus, and I like the way you described it for the November knockdown challenge. And we know week 2 is getting ready to kick off here in just a few days, but that adrenaline, that focus that it takes, and I think you're in for a real treat in Ohio going after this whitetail, because I really do think it'll be something awe-inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
I think the future,
for sure.
though, a lot of people are switched over to saddle hunting, and I did that last year the full time, but I've also been filming Johnathan hunting, or Jonathan's kids hunting, or my husband hunting. I've been kind of film crew trying to get all this footage for our YouTube channel, and I switched and migrated over to saddle hunting. So if listeners don't know what that is you use a smaller set of sticks and you travel up the tree with almost tree climbing equipment, like if you were a
lineman.
Lineman stuff. Or tree trimmer. But that would be another cool element of the knockdown challenge, is to, speed climb up the tree, set your saddle, shoot at certain pitches and directions. That's one thing that I've noticed the last couple, these last 2 years saddle hunting, is the freedom you get hunting out of a saddle. All of the shooting positions that you do not get when you're in just a regular tree stand, ladder stand, lock on, you do not get. And also pulling your bow back from the saddle position, and it is a different set of strengths. I think that people probably are like, oh, I'm going to start saddle hunting. And then you get up in it and you're like, oh, wait, I can't pull my bow back because I'm not standing on something. And then I absolutely love it. I got a new tethered lockdown, and it is bad to the bone, and I will never go back. I almost want to hang my platform next to a lock on and then just hunt out of it and use the stairs to climb up to. And that's all I want to do is saddle hunt now. So there's another next step element.
Well, and that's what I'm going to be doing. Is I've got a saddle setup that I'll be using out in Ohio, and it's funny because I never even really climbed. I was mentioning this to my wife last night. I was like, I was never one to climb trees as a kid, and now that I'm getting closer to it, I'm like, this seems really dumb. but I'm gonna do it because it's an adventure. So no, I'm excited. I've been up in saddle, just kind of like testing them out and stuff, but never up 20 feet in a tree. So we'll see how this goes.
It's so much fun.
Oh yeah, but I definitely and I recommend people that shoot, don't overbow yourself. Like, it doesn't matter if you shoot 60 pounds, 70 pounds, 80 pounds. Like, you can kill something with 50 pounds, no problem. Obviously, don't go and shoot ranch fairy arrows with 50 pounds expecting to shoot out to 100 yards. But, you don't need to have the 80-pound bow unless you can, right? But you don't need it. And a big test that I recommend people do is sit down in a chair, sit on your knees, sit on your butt on the ground, and draw your bow. If you can't do it without arching forward and yanking back, then lower the poundage.
Yeah, and
go over your ego and draw the bow properly. You should be able to draw it and let it down without injuring yourself and without the arrow flying off the string when you try and let it down.
I think too, you should be able to make sure that you're not overpounding enough where you couldn't make another lethal shot if needed. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, "Ooh, I can pull back that." Well, what if something happens and you need to use a finishing shot and you can't get your bow all the way pulled back to do that? Yeah,
exactly. And can you hold it at the back wall?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I don't ever talk about what I shoot unless someone asks me. And then they ask me, they're like, "Wait, you do what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do 10 reps a day." And they're not always a distance, but I get the muscle work in, and I don't feel sore. I draw well, that I don't tear my shoulder up. I use crossover symmetry bands to make sure that my shoulder capsule is built up properly and I'm not clicking and I'm not scraping. And tearing up my shoulder as I draw the bow back, and I feel like I can hold steady. There was the first elk that I missed my very first year bow hunting was, I had an 83-pound bow, and I'd hold it back. I went back and watched the video to make sure I wasn't over-exaggerating it. I was almost 2 minutes at full draw following this elk. And so, and I didn't feel shaky at all. The reason I missed was because I misranged, and I didn't let down and re-range while he was walking. But, I was holding steady, and it's because I had practiced that. I had practiced holding my bow, not for 2 minutes, but I regularly practiced holding it at full draw for a minute and then making a good shot. So going back to the November Knockdown Challenge aspect of it, I don't know 100% if this is going to be included in future shoots, but I'd say practice it for anyone. Holding at full draw for a minute and then making a good shot, and then doing a workout, push-ups, squats, whatever, get your heart rate up, and then hold at full draw for a minute. See if you can do it. If you can't, maybe you need to lower your poundage, because most of the time you're not going to get that perfect shot, whether it's a whitetail in the rut and they won't stop, or if it's an elk and he likes to stop right where the stump is covering the vitals, or if it's a pronghorn that, whatever it is, you're probably not going to get a perfect shot. You're going to have to hold back for a little bit. So that, and then the saddle aspect, Lone Wolf does the Mobile Hunter Road Show, and I know they incorporated setting up a stand. So you had to put up 2 sticks and the stand, and then there was some running or some other workout incorporated in it, and then you had to make a shot. So I know cool. There was that challenge as part of the Mobile Hunter Road Show, and I would imagine that will eventually be a part of the November Knockdown Challenge. I don't know if it's going to happen this year because not everyone has saddles, but and I think that's the other thing too, is that would be fun, but keeping the barrier of entry at a point where, people don't necessarily have to buy a saddle to participate.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, but for those of us that have them, maybe having like a bonus round or something for fun, that that would be fun to do for sure. I agree with you.
I would say for me that probably very well doing Dudley's School of Knock, walking through that a couple years ago. As far as improving my shooting ability, I would say this year I improved the most. I might have shot 50 arrows total, but doing the Knockdown Challenge prep workout in the first form app, that really had a huge impact on my shooting. I was really shocked. Just you might shoot 4 arrows in a workout and do that 3 days a week, but even just that little bit extra shooting, but doing it with the heart rate up and doing it with the muscle, tightness or weakness or whatever, that really made a massive impact. So there's definitely something to be said for the physical preparation aspect and improving your shooting, especially with archery.
100%. I agree with that. And it's hard enough for people for some reason to shoot regularly, let alone incorporating some sort of physical fitness into it. But if you're one of those people out there and you're listening, I highly recommend you shoot at least once a week, if not multiple times a week. And you don't have to be out at distance. It's cool and fun to watch slow-mo footage of your arrow flying at 100 yards. I absolutely love doing it. I love doing it at 150 yards, which is, I've been able to do that and hit the target. And it's not a great group, but, watching it fly in slow-mo is fun. But if you don't have that capability, go in your garage, get a foam target that will hold the arrow and won't go through, or a bag target that's not beat to crap. And I prefer foam just because, most things have inserts and outserts nowadays, and it ends up pulling out. But either way, something that you can set up that will stop the arrow in your garage, I would say try and get 5 reps a day. If you don't have that ability, get some like crossover symmetry bands or some kind of band that you can work those muscles every single day, not to exhaustion, but to the point where you get used to drawing, so that you're not all frozen up when that buck of a lifetime comes in, or bull or whatever, and you forget to look through your peep sight Like people do that, and it blows my mind that people don't remember to look through their peep sight when there's a bull in front of them. I'm just like, that just blows my mind. But I can see why it would happen, because they picked up their bow 2 weeks ago and screwed broadheads on and hope they flew right.
Yeah, that's kind of like me. Well, me and Jonathan were just talking about anchor points, and you use a kisser button, no kisser button, where you put your thumb behind your ear, all those things. And like, when my husband's new to bow hunting, he's not new to hunting, but new to bow hunting. And when he got his whole Hoyt setup, it was like, that was one thing that I suggested, just because it's a known anchor point that you're going to, give you the best possible, setup process each time you pull your bow back. And, I think it was Michael Waddell. Can't remember. It was somebody that put something online recently about when you pull back on an animal, instead of going, from their back down to shoulder, shooting into the opposite shoulder, they would go from the bottom of the leg up, just for accuracy. That was another thing that I thought of. I don't know if anybody saw that. They said because you're more apt to. That would prevent the animal from ducking the shot, and if you, as an archer, made a mistake, it would be better for aiming low instead of aiming high to cast over the back of the animal. So that was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I know some people get in that process where they even in target archery, they start high and then drop into the shot, or start low and raise into the shot. I don't know. For me personally, and I just had I just set up a bow for this whitetail hunt, and I put a nose button on, and I was getting it put on, and my buddy at the shop, he's like, "Man, I'm surprised you're still shooting these nose buttons." And I said, "Well, it's part of my process. I don't necessarily need it, but especially knowing that I'll be shooting out of a tree stand, I want to know my anchor's in the same spot." Mm-hmm. Because when you're angled down so far, your nose can slide up or down the string real easy. Whereas if I know that anchor spot's in the same place, and I personally, my theory behind the nose button versus the kisser, and nothing wrong with any of the other anchor things that people use, but I use a handheld release, because for me personally, I feel like I can get my knuckles in the right spot on my jaw every single time. Some people, the index release is the same way. Like Cam Haynes always wraps his thumb behind his head, and that's his anchor spot. And guess what? He's killed a heck of a lot more animals than I have.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's no criticizing that. It's funny when I hear people trying to criticize. I'm like, dude, shut up. Like,
however it feels most comfortable for them.
Repeatable.
Exactly. I'm like, dude, until you get invited to hunt at Deseret Ranch every single year and the San Juan Reservoir, like, just shut your mouth. Like, and but so for me, I went to a handheld for that reason. And then the nose over the kisser, for me, I've got a beard, and so I try and keep as much facial pressure off of my string as possible. So for me, the nose button works better because I don't dig my string into my face. I just tap my nose lightly to where it pokes your nose, and then I'm not putting any pressure on the string for me personally. I've already got enough pressure coming off my beard and everything else. For me, a kisser would not be ideal, because then I'd be pushing into the string too much personally. So those are my anchor points is, my nose, my knuckles with the handheld release. And once I'm there, I get into my shot process. And again, not everyone agrees with Joel Turner, but for me, it works amazing. And on any animal that I've killed with a bow, that shot process works great for me. I don't have to, fire off the release and hope that the arrow hits. Like, I know as soon as that release hits, that arrow is flying true. There's no guesswork behind it. So, but again, that's repetitions, practicing, and I found what works best for me. It's just like, shooting a Hoyt versus a PSE versus a Matthews. Matthews don't fit me for some reason. It just doesn't. Hoyt and PSE are my bread and butter, and I work with PSE. I shoot for PSE because of that. And so for all those things, like, people need to stop bickering about what's better. Nose button, kisser, handheld, index, tension release, what bow, what string. It doesn't matter.
I think
you want it to look good for you.
Yeah. With technology, I think that's starting to blend. I mean, now the hunting public, I mean, those guys are just smashing it with basic, Dick's Sporting Goods, bear bows, and, your grandpa's best Goodwill old school camo patterns.
Mine was
and
Golden
whatever.
Eagle.
I mean, man. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, just enough with the bickering. And, again, a bow that looks good to me isn't going to look good to someone. That's the other thing, too, people don't talk about. Like, you want it to look good. There's a reason why we put different colors and different schemes. Some people like certain camo patterns, whereas I like others. Some people recently, they've come at me, they're like, oh man, like I really don't like that Cryptek. And I'm like, great, don't buy it.
Yeah.
I shoot you're not offending me. I don't care. I love it. I think it's awesome. They also sell solid.
That's right. And you're shooting a PSE Mach, what is it?
Yeah, so I've got the Mach 34 is the one that I killed my bull with this year. I've got an Omen, which that thing is a speed demon. Just for reference, it's 80 pounds, 28-inch draw, 450 grain arrows flying out at 310.
Wow.
I like those specs, the 33-inch axle to axle on that. It's pretty cool. For it to fly out that fast with my medium draw weight, it's not short, but I'd say it's on the shorter end of draw length. And then I just set one up that I can't tell you what model it is. It'll be out on the 15th, but it is sweet. And it's going to be my whitetail setup. And that thing's ripping too. It's 28-inch draw. I think it's like 78 pounds. Same arrow coming out at 303. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We do the same thing with shotguns for waterfowl. I think Johnathan bought like 4 guns last year. They have all different camo patterns. And then he'll use like the oldest Benelli he has in his gun safe that has like a cotter pin in the bottom of it holding the shells in. I'm like, didn't you just buy a new gun? He's like, yeah, but I like this one.
It's about consistency.
That one's a safe princess. That one looks too good to shoot, right?
Yeah. I put stickers all over my stuff. Some people don't put stickers all over their stuff. It's all of a preference thing.
And some people like carbon, some people like aluminum on bows. Like it just, it's all a preference thing. And again, string color, Picatinny mount, no Picatinny mount. Like you guys are shooting Hoyts, about the Picatinny mounts and lower stabilizer, upper. Like there's so many different customizable options. Just shoot what you like, and if it looks good for you, and it's like if you pick it up every single time you pick it up, you're like, man, this thing's good. For whatever reason it does it for you. Who cares what other people think?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, hey man, we've gone past your blocked amount of time for us. So, what do you want to leave us with? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So I think this is probably the most I've talked about faith in a podcast. So I appreciate that. So if you're looking to find me, I'm just red.beard.outdoors on Instagram. On YouTube, it's Red Beard Outdoors. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, same thing. It's all the same logo. Always feel free to reach out, shoot me a message. I try and answer all my messages within 24 to 48 hours, unless I'm on the mountain and don't have signal. And shoot me an email as well. I've also got a Facebook group, the Day One Crew, which we didn't really get into that, but just the idea of, day one of any journey, you're super stoked about it and keeping that passion throughout the rest of the journey, whatever it is that your goals are. That's the goal of that group. And then of course, First Form Outdoors.
Awesome. Well, I was hoping that we would get to some Western hunting while we were talking. So I guess we'll have to do this again here before long. And you can tell us all about your first bull elk harvest and some of the how to do the Western hunting, because I'm personally not very familiar with it, so maybe we can get you back in here.
Let's talk again maybe February after I've completed I've got a late season cow tag in January, so let's follow up again maybe February. We'll talk about it.
Good.
That'd be awesome.
When you shoot that 200-inch whitetail, send us a picture. We'll share it on our stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I am taking the first 2 does that come across me that don't have any fawns, and I am taking anything over a 40.
You're my man. That sounds exactly like my style of whitetail hunting, and I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm still there.
Exactly. I'm not coming home empty-handed.
And then
Nope.
we'll table it also, sticking true to the Absent with Our Lord podcast, faith, family, and then outdoors. I think we've covered the faith and we've covered the outdoors, but next time also I'd like to talk about your family and your transformation, your journey along developing Red Beard Outdoors. I've heard it in a podcast, about your wife, just enjoying the outdoors and hiking and things like that. And again, we spoke earlier, and I know you have 5 children. I'd like to hear about that journey too. So we'll catch back up in February, if that's all right with you, and see how your season's ended and continue the friendship from there on out. This is
awesome.
Another podcast with Absent with Our Lord. This is Team AWOL out.